Hello YouTube and welcome to another YouTube video. In this one I decided to do my first sort of deck showing. I'm pretty sure it's my first. I've been working on a lot of decks recently. I've got a sort of list going of what a checklist decks of what I wanted to make. Haven't made them all yet. But this one was one that I came up with because what I noticed was trying to find some decks for all the different generals. There wasn't too much for Ilena. I think I barely see Ilena on a ladder. Sometimes I do, but not that often. I wanted to sort of tackle trying to make a viable deck. It seems a little bit hard in this meta, is what I will say. There are a few decks that shut it down pretty hard. But for me, this is a fun deck. I like to play it. Even if it doesn't have the highest win rates, I like to play it. I think it's pretty fun. I think the hardest thing to find for Ilena is a win condition. I picked Embla. It's good, but you could argue that Kara does Wall Fae with Embla better, or Wall Vanna with Embla better. Fae could also have a sort of wall deck and just stall, since I have that backup of the Warbird chip damage. But I picked Embla for now, and something I've been thinking about is Ilena's BBS allows you to control the board and clear minions, much like Saj does, but comparing the two, Saj has a lot more support, I would argue. They have artifacts. They can use, their BBS with Zephyr or with the artifacts to clear, but they also have things like Spine Cleaver or like the Saj OTK combo. They have more ways to close out the game as well as control the board with their BBS. That's what I did notice. They're sort of lacking the end game. I hope Ilena does get more support in the future. So they have a solid way to close out the game. They might sort of synergize with their ability. I'm not sure though. I don't think they're there at the moment. So we'll start off with triple Ice Shatter Gauntlet. It's pretty standard. To clear minions, you want to freeze them and you want to Ice Shatter Gauntlet. I have a few ways of doing that with the BBS. I got a couple of Frigid Coronas and the Hydrogun. The Frigid Coronas are nice as a stun for Ice Shatter Gauntlet synergy. Particularly it's good against Vath to try and use it at the right time to slow him down, to stop him hitting face at the right time. Maybe, for example, just after a finality turn, you're stunned, he's about to hit you, you can then stun him back. If you haven't already used it as a combo, because it is a really nice clear if you don't have your BBS up that turn. Mana Death Grips are for ramp, as we do have an 8 mana play, but ideally we could get it out earlier with some, if we get the chance to Mana Death Grip. Aspect of Shimzor Thunderhorn combo. It's a pretty solid AoE clear. I have a couple of sort of AoE clears at 6 mana, which is the Aspect Thunderhorn combo. I'm also running Frostburn. And because I did notice I was running those, I didn't have any clear before 6 mana for like Swarm, which there is a little bit of on a ladder. For example, you could be running like Lilith Hyper Swarm. Not really Mave, no, Brome. Brome has a lot of Swarm potential. So I did put in a couple of Scorns. Scorn wouldn't really help you in the Brome matchup, it's mainly for Lilith. So you don't just lose outright before you can get to the late game. My other minions, triple Azure Herald. Again, this deck could just lose out to really aggro. It still could. So I want triple Azure Herald to try and heal myself to the late game. One thing I did notice as well with just Vanna in general, Lionar's got things like the Sundrop Elixir, Scintilla, good amount of heals in Lionar. Songhai has 4 Winds Magi. Vitruvian has Amara Healer. Abyssian has Desolators, Void Pulses, Spectral Blade. Magmar has Earth Sphere, Soren's Finality. Vanar's the only faction that doesn't have any in-faction healing, so I had to go for a neutral minion. Originally, you'll see it in some of the replays. Originally, I just threw in some mystics, but all the healing that, well, the 2-drop healing slot, you're not going to be healing minions, you're going to be healing face, so you want to go for heralds over mystics for that extra point, which potentially could have made a difference. It's a change I made later. Triple Chromatic Cold, Dispel, really important. Hearth Sister, I have things like Hearth Sister, and I have the Freeblade Sentinel to bring threats toward me. Say I have the Eyeshadow Gauntlet on, I have an ability to stun in hand, but obviously when you're versing Ilena, you're just like, okay, so they have Eyeshadow Gauntlet on. Okay, I'm not going to play a threat in their face. Easy. So these can bring them in, particularly Freeblade. Freeblade being a Sentinel. Sentinels can be kind of a guessing game. Not a lot of people expect Freeblade. They might expect a Spell Sentinel first. Perhaps Freeblade second, and the ranged one third. I don't think many people run the ranged one. I'm running Rust Callers. It has some use, just to fill out the 2-drop slot being one of them. You sometimes run into Mantra. One of the replays I will show was running Mantra. So it's good for that, to deal with the Blood Rage masks, to stop you taking damage, to get rid of Crescent Spears so your board isn't removed as easily. Sometimes you run into... Zaban has that artifact that pings 2 damage on healing procs. You got Regalia. Vitruvian, I've seen a fair bit of Sage, not heaps, but some Sage. With Iris Barrier can help get rid of that. Spine Cleaver, Unk, things like that. Abyssian's Spectral Blade for if you're going against an aggro cast matchup. Fura Chakram for Lilith. Magma doesn't tend to run artifacts unless you're going against sort of a solo Wrath rather than a mid-range Wrath. And in a mirror, you can get rid of an Eyeshadow Gauntlet. So yeah, there's that. I've had some games where it's come off, but it's nice just as a turn 1 play. If you don't think you're going to need it in the matchup, you don't have to waste a Hearth Sister or an Azure Herald heal. So yeah, there's that. The Freeblades I've covered. Sojourner's card draw. Sojourner over Spelljammer because we want to get to the late game. We're a bit more control-y. We don't want to give our opponents cards. Scorn, as I say, the AoE before 6 mana. Hydrogarm's a nice way to stun multiple targets. Stun a ranged backline threat. Stop it coming in. As well as stun something in front of you if they've got a bit of a board advantage over you. And combos with the Eyeshadow Gauntlet. Night Watcher has some use. In the matchups I've shown, I've seen a fair bit of Vitruvian on a ladder because they have the Thunderhorn Lost in the Desert combo. It's pretty aggressive. And they also sort of have Obelisks mixed in, some of them. It's obviously going to shut down Obelisk Vet. It can deny him a Cantor. That's obviously still popular on a ladder. But this is just me, I haven't seen a lot of Plasma Storm. I've seen a lot of Rebuke, I've seen a lot of Lava Slash, a lot of Macantor, a lot of Nat Select. But I haven't seen a lot of Plasma Storm. So I went with Night Watcher. It plays around Rebuke and it plays around... Macantor can't just straight up kill it. Lava Slash can't just straight up kill it because of the force field. So it's just sort of the question of, in this meta, there's sort of it's really tough to just play around everything at once. In some cases, it really can't be done. Like playing around, for example, like Zephyr and Blood of Air and Lost in the Desert and all this other stuff in Vitruvian. You can do all of them individually, but you can't do them all at once. Same with, I feel, with Magma, with their removal of Nat Select, Plasma Storm, Lava Slasher, Rebuke, Macantor. You can play around all of them at different times, but you can't play around all of them at once. So I just want the best of the bad situation. It can die to Nat Select and Plasma Storm, but it's immune to some other things. That's why I went with Night Watcher. And it's just a solid force field minion. It's sticky with the force field. Thunderhorn, obviously for the aspect combo. More AoE and the Embler. I could always, in the future, if I find something better that I might want to put in, I could swap out the Frostburns. But I'm not too sure what I might want to put in instead. I haven't figured that out yet. In the future, I might make that adjustment. And Embler's the late game. So that's the deck. We'll go over some replays that I have lined up. And I'll be back in a moment. Alrighty. Sorry if the lighting is a bit bad. We have our first match against Draco Moriarty. Moriarty, yeah, I think that's the correct pronunciation. Oh yes, yeah, okay. So it was still a good game. I was AFK at the start. I still feel like I want this replay to show off the deck. So we have a huge upside to running the Rust Crawlers is against Mantra, which I definitely suspected that he was running. It was really good that I had those in the opening hand to deal with the Blood Rage. Opening Gambits that have an effect, a useful effect in the matchup and get a body on the board is really good. And this just seals the deal that he was running Mantra. So we do have a nice clear here with Scorn. Gets a solid 4 health body on the board. It's above the 3 health threshold, which Phoenix Fire would just deal with, so it's kind of significant there. Clears this at the same time. I think the correct play was to punch him. I think I need to sort of... is it though? I do punch, okay. So the reason I put that there is because I wanted sort of... I could deny this one, but I couldn't deny this one. But I didn't want to sort of move this forward. I didn't want to just sack it off into his general, and by moving it forward, it might have meant that he could just move down, take the mana, and punch it. Whereas if I put it here, it threatens the mana tile, so you kind of want to take it to deny it. But you can't punch it at the same time and just clear it for free. And take the mana tile, which is my reasoning. He ignores it in an attempt to clear the Scorn instead. He goes Blood Rage Mask, Petal Fury. So he has his second artifact and then the third. And a discounted Katatsu with the Crescent Spear clears that. So he expended some resources. He gets 2 back because it was a Katatsu. We do have the Rust Crawler as well. The problem being that when they have multiple equipped, I think it is random. You don't get to pick. My focus is to clear his artifacts, as many as I can, as fast as I can. Even if he has more attack, I kind of have to punch him to clear those. He'll still have 1 charge at the very least. We've got him kind of surrounded. He could just clear this and move back. We have the second Hearth Sister to try and get more damage in, guaranteed. Unless he has a Twin Strike. Yeah, it was pretty rough how many Crescent Spears he had. He does a lot of damage this turn. Just decides, well, I have to make use of these artifacts before they potentially get removed. He oopsed because he attacked first and lost one of his spears. He could have got more value from the Phoenix Fires beforehand and then attacked. The Hearth Sister... Do I leave a Crescent Spear up is the question. No, because he punched me. I think this clears it. I well play because I am at 5 health. I suspect that he's got out of hand damage guaranteed. I block there. Try and refill my hand. I draw the Mystics. As I say, I'm not running Heralds at this point. I am running Mystics. Duelyst Callers came in handy. It's kind of why I wanted to show off this match. The potential tech. I survived the Mantra by the skin of my teeth. So there was a lot of burst. As I say, the Heralds were going to help, perhaps, in this matchup, which is why I wanted to point it out, rather than the Mystics. But it does point out that sort of spell aggro, that of Shaddai or that of Fae, for example, could burn you out pretty fast and is a bit of a tough matchup for this deck. So I punch first, try and draw something. I could have ramped into Embler that turn. I do have the healing to try and stay alive, obviously. Problem with... And he does kill me here with the 8 gates Thunderbomb. Spoilers, he Thunderbombs, and that's the exact lethals. So, the Heralds would have given me an extra 2 points of healing, would have brought me to 7, which might have put me out of range, I'm not sure. But Jacob Moriarty is a really good player. He might have... Yeah, he already had that with the... Probably setting it up after the Mantra. He only needed like a little bit of damage. He probably had the Thunderbomb in hand. Might not have had the 8 gates. But this deck controls the board very well, but decks like this deck, there's a Fae deck which I'll also show off, and to a degree Vath, but having an ability to still deal with the big overstated Lava Slash and all that kind of stuff still is handy, but purely spell-based removal decks are difficult to deal with and heal out of range of their burst, which kind of made the Thunderhorn Aspect combo sort of a dead combo, whereas in other matchups it'll be really good. So we do lose that one. It was a pretty close game though. So we have a game versus Melog, a Vitruvian, which I have been seeing a lot of, so I feel like it was a relevant replay to share. We do have to tempo out, or replace them at Death Good. We do have to tempo out a Hearth Sister here. I could have Frigid Coronad, but given that I have the Ice Shadow Gauntlet in hand, I kind of want to save that combo in case I have to use it on a downtime where I don't have my BBS up. And in terms of switching positions, I do have the Freeblade to take the place of the Heart Sister, and the Heart Sister potentially let me ramp to 4. So yeah, here's the advantage in saving it. Because say if I hadn't, say if I had just stunned him, he would have played his Obelisk out of reach. I would have had the Ice Shadow Gauntlet, but I wouldn't have been able to Hearth Sister it over, because I would have needed 4 mana, and Hearth Sistering it on the tile wouldn't have given me the tile. It would have put this on the tile before I actually take the mana. Because I think opening gambits go off before it actually enters the field. So before I actually took the mana with the Hearth Sister, it would have taken the tile before I did. And I was still 1 turn away from my BBS. So he can guarantee take 2 charges off this. It's unfortunate in that he does have the Righteous Curse. It's a really good card. For the same reason I'm running Rust Callers, he can run Righteous Curse. It's a faction one. Must be nice. He ramps really nice and gets some board presence here, which is pretty rough. Or he just denies that one, which is also good. So I don't suspect that the Xerix will be running any artifacts. So I place the Rust Caller. I opt to deny the mana tile with the Thunderhorn and freeze this for now. Even without the aspect, Thunderhorn can be nice to lock things in place to try and chain. You can also do that with the Frigid. If you Frigid their general and place a Thunderhorn near them. Anything that they summon near them is just going to chain, and there's not much they can do about it. Particularly Xerix when they might want to clear it with a Falsius. Of course, he could just Blood of Air at this point. He opts to play around it. My thoughts right now is I kind of want to play around Lost in the Desert. So I always want to have something to summon every turn. And until he gets to sort of 9 mana, where you can Blood of Air Lost in the Desert, I should be okay. As long as I have some minion to play every turn. So I was trying to find out the best way of doing it. I obviously wanted to clear his Thunderhorn. I had the options. I think I aspect and then I want to move it here, right? So that this battle pet can reach it. Because I think that's the only spot that it could. I think I made a Death Grip. I'm not too sure though. I wonder what I do. I think I Sojourner. I'm not too sure. But if I Sojourner, again, I think it's because I've Lost in the Desert. I think I valued having the body on the board rather than... Okay, I made a Death Grip. It was pretty risky doing that. In retrospect, it was quite risky doing that. I do clear it and ramp. So if I potentially draw into an Embler next turn, I could play it. And I have to punch here to clear the Obelisk as well. This is a full board clear. But I was just worried that if he cleared this with like a Falsius, I'd be pretty vulnerable to Lost in the Desert, and it would have given him tempo back. But it is a really nice clear. Start swinging the game in my favor a little bit. Now that we have card advantage, not quite health yet. We do struggle with the health a little bit at this point. But as I say, we have card advantage. On top of that, we also have the Sojourner to reinforce the fact that we can just sort of stall out. We have the Frostburn, which potentially could give us some value. Double Chromatics isn't really necessary. Neither is the Rust Caller. Really nice that we have that Chromatic. So I can dispel it, stun it, stall out a little bit longer, keep replacing. Hopefully we draw into our late game. And I do Hydrogarm. I think I Hydrogarm here to also stun this. And Hydrogarm is really good for slowing things down, right? With this, he can only have his general as a potential clear, and Falsius doesn't directly clear this. So that was nice. Now I have the Hydrogarm sort of out of reach. The only thing I'm now worried about is I needed to place it there, but I also want to tend toward placing things closer toward me. If that makes any sense, because of Lost in the Desert. This looks like another Blood of Air. Lives on 1 health, I think. He's still not at 9 mana, so you can't Blood of Air Lost in the Desert. But it's something he wanted to clear. So in the late game, now that we have our BBS up every turn, things like this just aren't relevant. We draw the Ice Shadow Gauntlet, but say that we hadn't, we could just keep freezing it and it wouldn't get any value. Particularly now that it's been dispelled, even if you went out unmaking, you wouldn't get the damage. Now that's what we're scared of. We didn't draw any minion that turn, and so we do get Lost in Desert punished. And he places the Fireblaze. So this was a very aggressive matchup. He's trying to get rid of the Ice Shadow Gauntlet. He can take 2 charges off. We still have 1 more. We do get lucky here in that we finally draw back into our Embler, which saves us, which is pretty good by the skin of our teeth. Now we're playing around Lost in the Desert for sure. I don't think there's a way that we get lost in the desert here. So I was thinking about it. He could punch here, move this up, or he could just punch that, and another Blood of Air would have done a trick with the Fire Blaze up. Luckily, he didn't have the third one. And other than that, if they can't Lost in the Desert, walls like this, I've noticed, are kind of hard for Vitruvian to deal with. They just sort of have to trade off as best they can. They do bring it down to just one Blazing Spine. But again, we have 3 cards to his 2. We are very behind on health, but we're a little bit ahead on board in terms of stats. And we have the Frostburn AoE clear, which is nice. So I can 6 and 3, and I do. Definitely, I could have... I think I had a Mana Death Grip, but again, I didn't want to move out of this corner. I just wanted to surround myself. Blood of Air would have killed me either way. Whether I moved out or not, I think. Blood of Air first wish. He's forced, because of the other provoke, he's forced to Falsius the wall. And now we have exact lethal. We had a couple more, we had 2 damage at a hand. But we just use our general here. Win on 1 HP. Pretty solid. The biggest difficulty was Lost in the Desert. It's why we lost a lot of our health. Trying to maintain having a minion on board is probably a priority. And not play things too offensively, because that would just give them the opportunity to clear it for cheap and then Lost in the Desert. Yeah. Next and final replay. This is a Fae matchup, which I think this particular version, or this particular sort of deck, is kind of popular ever since the expansion dropped. You still see a little bit of Flawless Perfection, but spoilers, this is not Flawless Perfection. Unfortunately, I didn't have a turn 1 play. I am running the 9/2 drops. There's still variance in that sometimes you will, sometimes you won't draw your turn 1 play. You just sort of have to make do. So the Cryptographer Warbird start makes me think, could you be running Bloodbound Mentor? This game was a little bit of variance. This won't always happen, but in Duelyst, you kind of... It's difficult to suspect what they might be running. I'll try and explain my thoughts after his turn. So I get fissured. It's one of those things like fissure, like an early flash Mercantor. There's ways to play around it, but you also have to balance the likelihood of them having it and the downside to then you playing around it. Yes, there's things that you can play around. You can play around fissure, but not taking center. But center tile is such a strong position that playing around it is still quite detrimental to you. And again, Flash Mercantor early on, there's a way of playing around it, but the position, the awkward position that you have to then take to play around it, is that worth it in the early game where you want to still take mana tiles and things like that? You could argue no, it's not worth it. So I do take 8. It's really unfortunate that I take 8, but do I really regret taking center and putting myself in a potentially better situation? No. So one of the things I was scared of was the aspect combo, because you are at 4, you're going to 5, and you're threatening to take a tile to get to 6. So that was what I was wary of here. So I do want to take that tile. And in terms of my 4 mana plays, I have Scorn or I have Thunderhorn. I think I do just chuck out the Thunderhorn and deny the tile to stop you pulling off a Thunderhorn combo, which would just deal a lot more damage to me, which wouldn't have been good. We do have the aspect, so if he doesn't clear it, we can still make something work with the Thunderhorn. And this is a little bit awkward in that I put the I had the Free Blade out from the turn before, because I knew I would have the Ice Shatter BBS next turn, and if you decide to play the Bloodbine Mentor defensively, I had to clear for it. But you fished that turn, where I kind of thought a Bloodbine Mentor would be coming down. So we're extremely low on health right now. The positioning is a bit awkward in that I don't think there was a way of chaining here because of the Free Blade. So I kind of shot myself in the foot in that regard. At this point I'm like, okay, so I have some board presence, I cash it in, I punch. I do want to get rid of the Mentor, but if I can preserve my Thunderhorn, that would be better. I aspect, realize, okay, so it's got 3 attack. I don't want it to just straight up clear the Thunderhorn. I want to get as many bodies on the board as I can to try and push some face damage. So this is going to suicide into that and leave 3 bodies up. Really unfortunate clear as well here. Half Sister into the second fissure. I backed up, so I played around like a Mesmerized Fissure Lethal, which was okay. A little bit of an awkward hand. I Mana Death Grip Chromatic Cold this in order to have 8 mana on the following turn, which is good since I have the Emblem in hand. At this point, I'm just hoping, that's pretty much all I do with my turn, I think. At this point, I'm hoping that he doesn't have the second Bloodbine Mentor, because it would put us in a very awkward position. And sadly, we didn't draw any of our heralds. Our mystics this game in a matchup where we kind of would have needed it. I do concede here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pause it in time. Don't think so. So I suspected I wouldn't have been able to close out that game fast enough. All he needed there was 2 damage out of hand. It could have been a Cryptographer. My Embler, in order to close out the game before he kills me with his Warbird, would have had to have been the 6 Blazing Spines. He clears 1 with the Mentor, leaves me with a 5, which is 15 damage. He would have had to have not have any answers for any of the walls. He would have not had to have Cryptographer or any kind of 2 damage out of hand plays, you know? Would have been really awkward. So that's just a example of, once again, the spell damage decks kind of shutting you down. They don't really play many minions that give your AoE the payoff that you want. In terms of how to phrase it. In terms of piloting difficulty, I'd say this deck is up there. It's still a fun deck though. I like to pilot it. I like the challenge of piloting a difficult deck. I don't like playing decks that pilot themselves. There are some decks on the ladder that when you win with it, it's just a question of is the deck, are you winning or is the deck winning for you? And with a difficult to pilot deck, if you win with it, it's because you played it well, not because the deck is just good and pilots itself. If that makes any sense. My last closing thought for this deck, sorry I'm rambling, but I just have a lot of thoughts up here. I like to puke out. Last closing thoughts would be, I recently watched a video on a Duelyst roundtable with Wicked Flux, Argud, Uno Pro, and Relazin. It was an old one, based around when Shimzar came out. Now we're going full circle, it's almost rotated out, but Wicked Flux brought up a point of combos, and how having 6 cards in hand can be somewhat limiting, because with this deck has a lot of combos, right? It has the Eyeshadow Gauntlet, potentially Frigid Corona combo. It has the Aspect of Shimzar, Thunderhorn combo. It has potentially the Hydrogarm Eyeshadow Gauntlet combo. It has, ideally you want a Free Blade as well. It's difficult when you have synergy in the deck, which is good, but trying to sculpt your hand with everything that you want, sort of progressing throughout the game, it can be quite difficult, particularly with 6 cards in hand. And so for that reason, it might not be as consistent as you might hope, even if it's in the deck. Trying to get all these pieces at the same time, it's a challenge. It's difficult to do it consistently, but when you do, it feels good, and it feels like, it's that you played well, did the best you could until you got those combo pieces, and then, yeah, you feel a bit more rewarded, I feel. Anyway, those are just my closing thoughts. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one, where I'll be doing more decks like those. I've got more in the works. I'll explain it in another video. This video has been too long. Peace.